Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Let me introduce the topic. It's teaching reading skills more effectively. Well, here is my background. I am based in Israel. I am a PhD candidate at Atlantic International University in the United States. Um, I study on Zoom. Um, My research deals with neurodiversity and spatial education. I have two positions. First, I'm an English teacher in a special education school, and I'm an English lecturer in an American college. Also, I'm a regular conference presenter and an author of numerous research works. And today I'm presenting my newest one. Um, well, so here is the agenda of my presentation. Children learn to read before they start school. Nevertheless, some of them struggle. For instance, they confuse letters or may have difficulty reading comprehension, while others may have difficulty remembering, resulting from learning difficulties. They have such learning difficulties as dyslexia, the most common learning disability, which often affects reading and language skills. According to the statistics, about 40 million people in the United States and the other countries in the United States suffer from dyslexia. But only about 2 million have been diagnosed with it. At the same time, about 30% of people diagnosed with dyslexia also suffer from autism spectrum disorders and ASD and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, to one degree or another. As for my country, also about between 10 and 15% of children suffer from dyslexia and other disorders. Thus, in Israel, children with learning disabilities have special treatment. For instance, if they study in a regular school, they have a psychological and pedagogical treatment. If they have other disorders that I'm going to tell later, they go to school, to special education schools, and they have a thorough treatment there. As for our school, most kids finish it, pass matriculation exams quite well, and they go to colleges and universities. Well, now I'm going to present neurodiversity and learning difficulties. As I have also told, dyslexia is one of the common learning disabilities. It can be developmental or genetics. It often runs with families, or acquired. Acquired dyslexia comes from injury, stroke, or trauma. Thus, developmental dyslexia may be phonological, and acquired dyslexia may be surface or deep dyslexia. Thus, surface dyslexia includes confusing letters, figures, and other written details, and deep dyslexia means the children often confuse not only what is spelled or written, but also what is heard. For instance, misunderstood or misheard words. Well, now I'm going to describe sorts of dyslexia. Thus, phonological dyslexia is characterized by extreme difficulty in reading due to inability to break down the basic sounds of language. Surface dyslexia is characterized by difficulty in recognizing and spelling words, which the mapping between print and sound is not governed by rules. Tricky words like colonel, yacht, and island that have irregular spelling sound correspondence appear as a major challenge for surface dyslexia. Thus, they can pronounce, for instance, instead of yacht, they can say yacht or yacht. Instead of island, they can read and pronounce like Island and so on. And the deep dyslexia can be observed in people who commit semantic errors. For instance, reading out a challenged word for a written word. Thus, instead of table, they can say desk or chair. Instead of street, they can say road or highway. Instead of dog, they can say or understand fox and so on. This is partly because of poor ability to sound out words and over-reliance of sight words. And deep dyslexia sometimes includes very challenging dyslexia, which means that after a lesson, even an individual lesson with a tutor, a teacher, in the end of the lesson, the child reads letters quite well, but he forgets them. And the next lesson, he has to study the same letters and the words again. So it includes poor memory, working memory mainly. Which other disorders accompany dyslexia? Dyslexia is often accompanied by such disorders as dyscalculia, when a child struggles in doing math. Dyspraxia, it's problems with coordination, clumsiness, dysgraphia, which includes unreadable handwriting and or in neat, not very neat handwriting. ADHD, when children get distracted very often. Some of them make a lot of noise during the lessons. They're impatient, and when the teacher asks, they shout the answers without turn. It's very difficult to play games or do other tasks quietly, and they want to be the first, and they often shout the answers even if the teacher doesn't ask. And some kids, quite the contrary, are very quiet in the classroom. They listen to the teacher, but they don't hear. They just don't memorize or misunderstand what the teacher says. Thus, when the teacher asks, for instance, to complete the sentences, they do different tasks because they misunderstand. And ASD, or autism spectrum disorder, which means problems with communication, challenges with behavior, and the children often fight with their peers, argue with teachers and parents, and they are not, as a result, they are not accepted in the classroom. And when they have 2 or 3 disorders together, it makes their learning very, very challenging, and they need help. Which help they need, I'll tell later. Well, the importance of early diagnosis. Many children have atypical brains. In most cases, teachers recognize dyslexia, dysgraphia, and other disorders when children start school, when they're in the first, or second, or third grades, when their reading is poor and their writing is unreadable. But parents can recognize dyslexia when their children are still in kindergarten or even earlier, when they are about 2 or 3 years old. Thus, parents and kindergarten teachers might notice the following symptoms of learning disabilities: poor motor skills, delay in speech development, problems with memory and attention, slowness or restlessness, clumsiness, and problems with communication. Furthermore, nowadays, it's possible to recognize potential learning disabilities even in babies. Thus, some years ago, scientists from Tel Aviv University did computer research on babies, and they recognized potential learning disabilities when they saw different brain structure. And the research showed when the same children were 3 or 4 years old, they really had some disorders I have already told about. And in order to prevent them to have difficulties at school, it's very useful to provide spatial lessons while they are still in the nursery or in the kindergarten. Such methods that train their memory. Which types of memory must be trained? Explicit, implicit, semantic, episodic, declarative, and procedural. They are components of working memory, short-term memory, that is transferred to long-term memory, so that they will memorize things and know spatial skills that will be useful at school. Well, what happens if the nerve system does not work properly? Many skills, including education, are violated. A hypersensitive student cannot focus. Children experience discomfort from irritations. A hyposensitive student does not feel his body or face, which can be told that he or she might have autism spectrum disorder. And children with sensory seeking look for different objects or people to touch. That irritates other people. And such neurodivergent children get educational difficulties that I have already told about, such as dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, and many more. And they have executive dysfunction. Well, In Israel and other countries, sensory integration is widely used. This theory was developed by Jean Ayres in the 1950s. This theory claims that a person has 7 perception systems, such as sight, smell, taste, hearing, tactile system, vestibular apparatus, sense of one's own body. Till now, in Israel and other countries, remedial teachers mainly practiced overlearning. What does it mean? They asked a child to read words or to write them many, many times. They hoped that overlearning and practice makes perfect. It does, but remedial teachers and psychologists must treat the reason of the difficulties, not only the result. So the result is the poor reading and writing. But what is the reason? The reason is the sensory problem. And thus, sensory education is widely practiced. And what does it mean? It is spatial exercises and such as occupational therapy and sport. Well, who needs sensory education? First of all, children with poor motor coordination, because you see, sometimes motor coordination causes unreadable handwriting or not very neat handwriting. And children with autism spectrum disorders who have problems with senses and with the communication. Thus, if they get spatial exercises, spatial therapy, it improves their ability to communicate. Children with dyspraxia, who are clumsy or often have trembling in their hands, which also prevents them from neat handwriting. And dyslexic children. So dyslexia not only results with genetic disorders or with traumas or infections. Children who experience visual and auditory processing difficulties also sometimes confuse letters and misunderstand what they read. Also, children with hypo and hypersensitivity and restless and hyperactive children also need sensory education so that it will improve their behavior and their perception. Many researchers have reported that reading disability is associated with sensory deficiencies in processing particular visual and auditory stimuli. Learning disabilities are forever. It's impossible to treat dyslexia or dysgraphia totally, but it's possible to prevent some difficulties so that the children will get special skills that will improve their process of learning. And still, children study with the help of traditional and modern methods. Thus, teachers use as for the traditional methods, if teachers teach frontally in the classroom, um, in special education schools, they use textbooks of high quality. Thus, the material must be interesting and eye-catching. What does it mean, eye-catching? It's pictures. Also, keywords must be highlighted. Thus, when the teacher gives them a story to read, they should see the highlighted keywords, and the teacher can ask what the keywords mean. While teaching grammar, the highlighted grammar structures must also be highlighted. For instance, present simple, present progressive, present perfect, and graphic organizers, which helps them to understand the sentence structure and the plot structure of the story. So do diagrams. They enhance their general understanding. Well, as for modern teaching methods, it's self-checking exercises, maybe online. And this method was used while coronavirus pandemic, and nowadays during the war, children stay at home and we teach them on Zoom. So when we prepare for the lessons, we prepare or we do ourselves or choose from the internet exercises with self-checking tasks and adapt to their needs. Thus, children are, kids like computer games and they like studying with the help of computer games and self-checking exercises. And nowadays, when they're sitting in shelters, they like doing such exercises that check their spelling, sentence structure, sentence completing, writing, reading comprehension, and listening comprehension. And both traditional and online exercises are success oriented. Okay. Why our students do quite well on the final exams when they're in the 12th grade? Because we use mainly modern methods, and the final exams in our schools are computerized, depending on the diagnosis of the child. Otherwise, teachers read the text to the children while reading comprehension, and they see them and listen, which enhance their general understanding. It's multisensory teaching. So reading and seeing the text at the same time makes it better to understand. And also our final exams includes oral practice and listening comprehension and writing. If a child has poor writing, he or she is allowed to do writing tasks on computer. Otherwise, the child is tested orally. Everything depends on the challenge, on the degree of challenge of the diagnosis. Some of them have just dyslexia. In some children, dyslexia is accompanied by dysgraphia and many more. That's why we match different exams to them. I mean, the same exam can be done differently. Okay. Well, You can contact me on email, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Okay, and now I'm ready to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. It's a remarkable presentation. Does anyone have any question? Yep, there is a question from Mr. Mia Nakajima.
Well, from the academic classification of children's order, thank you. As you may
You're
know,
welcome.
this disorder may be difficult to solve fundamentally. And as you said, early detection plays an important role in detecting the kind of disorder, right? So what are crucial things about the early detection in everyday life?
Difficulties in the everyday life? Well,
Yes.
yeah. In the everyday life, they do quite well. Our students mainly they don't have a severe diagnosis, and they read different things in the shops. If they don't understand, they use their phones or computers. If they don't tell other people in which school they study, nobody guesses. But in general, they don't complain that they have severe difficulties in everyday life.
Okay, thank you.
And most of our students go to colleges and universities, and they sometimes come to visit us, and they're thankful, they're grateful for our methods. They say, dear teachers, we are so grateful to you, even if they were not happy that sometimes we gave them too much boring practices, and they had treatment in our school. For instance, instead of having fun, they had to go to psychologist, and they got occupational therapy in our school. But finally, they realized that it was for their good.